Can you guys see anything?
Yeah, sure. Please go.
Okay. First, I just wanted to thank you guys for hosting this conference. My name is Adam Francescudo, and this is a research proposal. I'm going to be presenting Reaching the Unbanked, an empirical analysis of financial inclusion and poverty in Brazil during COVID. A brief overview of my presentation. I'll start with an introduction of some key terms and an outline of my proposal. Then I'll go into some background information, some important implications that's going to shape my research, a very brief literature review on some important works, and then I'll go into a little more detail on my methodology. So it's first really important to understand the situation of the unbanked. These are people, there's roughly 1.7 billion around the world that don't have access to any financial services, no credit, savings, insurance. So it's a big issue. Also, financial inclusion is a process of enabling individuals to access these services. And these two have just played a really important role in recent years with greater access to technology to make financial services more accessible. And it's been really important with this COVID pandemic because these people that are most vulnerable are out of reach from assistance from the government programs. So the main research question shaping this proposal is understanding how financial inclusion affects poverty levels. To answer this, I'm going to use Brazil as a case study. As a third of their population, roughly 60 million people are unbanked, and they've recently adopted an interesting financial inclusion program. So I'm going to focus on two characteristics, looking at a long-term analysis and a multidimensional view of poverty. So to start, we've all seen how this COVID pandemic has led to economic downturns around the world. But I found it really interesting when I started doing some research that I found that official poverty levels in Brazil have decreased phenomenally, up to 35% in some of the countries, in some of the states. You can see on the left, that was last summer. The red is states that have over 50% of the people living in a household under half the minimum wage. So I just wanted to look at what would explain this phenomenon. One of the likely explanations is a financial inclusion program that the government launched in April. They were targeting poor workers who worked in the informal sector and anyone that didn't have a bank. And it comprised of two main parts. The first was a financial inclusion aspect, which allowed anyone without a bank account to open one free of charge through a mobile device at a state-owned bank. And the second aspect was cash transfers. Starting from April until August, they were sending out 600 reais a month, which was around 94 euros. It's been extended until December at half that rate. So in terms of the program, their immediate goals was really successful. It's reached over 60 million people, and 30 million previously unbanked have opened an account. So it is definitely success. You could see that the places that are the most poor have seen the greatest reduction, and those are also coinciding with receiving these emergency assistance. So one of the aspects that I noticed that is these stats use half the minimum wage is 522 reais, but the assistance was 600. So statistically, once they received this assistance, they were brought out of poverty. So I thought that was an interesting issue. And two implications can be drawn. I can control it, Professor. Two implications I was drawing from these. The first was this is a very expensive program, so it's going to stop eventually. It's taken up 4.6% of GDP. So once the cash transfer stops, according to the stats, these people will just go back to the poverty levels that they were before. So an implication is that the government has to maintain financial inclusion policies to maintain any outcomes. And the second is it simplifies the multidimensional nature of poverty. Poverty is more than just about income. So there has to be some sort of aspect to incorporate financial inclusion into this. So my main research objective is to empirically analyze the long-term effects of various levels of financial inclusion on multidimensional poverty in Brazil following this program. And my hypothesis is that higher levels of financial inclusion will lead to lower multidimensional poverty rates. I'll bring up some important works in the literature. This paper is going to adopt the theory of change from Duvendak and Madar that just shows how financial inclusion can lead to many outcomes. You can see that there's economic ones in yellow, various social outcomes, community bonds, improved health, education. So this just speaks to how financial inclusion could lead to multidimensional reductions in poverty. And I think that's a really important aspect to look at. In the literature, financial inclusion is looked at as an intervention strategy to overcome market failures that prevent markets from operating in favor of poor. In Brazil, you can see this as about 57% of those unbanked have insufficient funds, 56, the costs are too high to maintain an account, or the location is too far. So this suggests that there's three types of policies available to the government, also found in the literature. The first is just allowing people to have access to a financial account, either through a mobile device or a formal institution. The second type of policy is enabling credit and savings to these people to invest in their future. And then lastly, insurance is social security to mitigate risks. Okay, so for my methodology, I'll be using three data sources. One is the official stats from Brazil, the IBGE household survey, and they've adapted it to include COVID during the time of COVID to see how this pandemic is affecting labor market variables and other socioeconomic indicators, which is really interesting. It also is able to show which individuals have received this assistance and not, and it also shows by states. Also, information from the Global Findex database, which started in 2011 and updated every 3 years. It would be awesome if it comes out again in 2020 to show more information. That would be great. And it shows how people manage their finances, and it shows the amount of people without a financial account and why they don't have them. And further, just to further make the models more comprehensive, there'll be some macroeconomic indicators from the World Indicator database. So this is a brief, very general overview of what I'm hoping to do. The first step would to be measure the amount of financial inclusion by incorporating those three policies. And in adopting some of the literature models, they've assumed weight to these three levels, so that would give you the flexibility to change some of these variables. For instance, financial inclusion account, save the financial inclusion, those are all from the Global Findex database. So then using these three levels of financial inclusion, I was planning on using them as a regressor on poverty levels, defined previously as the half minimum wage. So this will just give you a better insight as to why we saw those changes in the map before, and also it'll have some predictive potential to show how different levels of policy adaptation will lead to changes in the poverty levels according to the simplified poverty stats. And then the third aspect, which I think is really important, is to incorporate these different levels of financial inclusion into a multidimensional measurement of poverty, such as the MPI or the MSI that we spoke of in class. Using comparative statics, we can see how changing these levels of financial inclusion can lead to different outcomes if all the other variables were to stay the same, or see how that affects the poverty. And this will obviously address the second implication. So these are my phases. I definitely need to improve some quantitative skills before I do this research. Next term, there's some courses that I'll be taking, measurements and causes of poverty, econometrics, poverty evaluations lab. That'll take me until May. And then from May until June, I'll collect the data and begin the analysis. From June to July, I'll start building the model and writing the report. I'll send out the document preliminary draft for reviews and revisions until September, and hopefully by October, it'll be ready for submission. So my original idea was to have this outcome as just an academic article. I didn't want to include too many things, as it was a new research proposal was the first thing for me, so I just wanted to focus on the empirical aspect. But there's definitely room for building this into a thesis or a dissertation by mixing mixed methods, incorporating on-the-ground research to try to understand what's behind a successful program, and look at what countries have potential for improvements. And those are just some of the references, so thank you very much.
Yeah, that's good. That sounds good. Okay. Thank you very much. I enjoyed both reading and listening to your presentation. I found it quite strong, and quite also challenging, is new things. And, so I appreciate. There are any questions? Do you have?
Any question from the audience? Okay. If I can, I'll just give a few comments to Adam. Just as, I mean, these are also the same as for Lorenzo, even though your project is a bit, which is good in this case, is a bit less ambitious than Lorenzo wanted to go for 10 years and following people. So I think the one thing that you need to is you're trying to monitor, because you talk about multidimensional poverty, but then you are looking at some sort of macro variables. So I'm not sure how you define that. You need to think about that a bit more. And also, I think that the design of the intervention actually allows for maybe more basic but easier impact evaluation of the program on the ground. And you should check if anybody is collecting data on that, and I'm sure they are. So where you could also ask people about, and have an indicator, because I think it's a bit difficult to find to really find data at that disaggregated level for you to build the econometric model. But anyway, you will acquire the skill necessary for this later. But anyway, very good effort, very interesting. It's good to see people talking about multidimensional poverty. And so.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank
you very much to everybody. Sorry for some technical problems that were occurring today, but I really enjoyed your presentation and your commitment in this course, and I would like to thank you all. So we will presentation will be on Thursday, so see you on Thursday afternoon. Take care and enjoy the class of Cipollini. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Bye.